Some truths are too dangerous to be told. Others are too powerful to stay hidden. When historian Emily Rhodes receives a cryptic letter sealed with black wax and marked by a symbol the world has forgotten, she's pulled into the shadows of a city she thought she knew. Beneath the ruins of a forgotten library lies a secret society, the Obsidian Circle, guardians of forbidden knowledge buried for centuries. But when Emily uncovers a cipher capable of unlocking every hidden truth on Earth, she becomes the target of a splinter faction determined to unleash it on the world, no matter the cost. As allies turn and enemies wear familiar faces, Emily must decide: protect a secret that could unravel civilization, or expose it and risk watching it burn. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The rain was unrelenting. A fine London drizzle soaked the city in a thin silver sheen, slicking cobblestones and casting halos around gaslight lamps. Emily Rhodes stood on her narrow balcony, a mug of tea cooling in her hands, watching the street below as passers-by hunched into their coats and hurried through the mist. She'd always loved this kind of weather, quiet, contemplative, as if the city itself whispered secrets. When she returned inside, her eyes landed on a curious envelope that hadn't been there an hour ago. It rested atop her ancient writing desk, out of place and yet undeniably real. Heavy parchment, no postage, no return address. Just her name in immaculate handwriting, inked in a looping, archaic script. Miss Emily Rhodes. Her brow furrowed. She hadn't heard the door, hadn't seen anyone approach. She turned it over. The seal, thick black wax, was imprinted with a symbol she'd never seen before, a perfect circle surrounding a single vertical line. Minimal, yet strangely unsettling. She cracked the seal with a letter opener. Inside was a single slip of cream-colored paper. No salutation. No signature. Just a sentence that sent a small chill down her spine. Seek what lies beneath the library of shadows. That was it. Emily reread the line, then looked again at the envelope. A thin crackling noise made her pause. It was coming from within the parchment itself. She held it up to the light. Something glimmered faintly beneath the top layer. Carefully, she peeled back the lining to reveal a second layer, transparent vellum over a hand-drawn map. A map of London, but old. Pre-modern. None of the Thames embankments, no Tower Bridge. She spotted St. Paul's Cathedral and Westminster, but everything else looked different. At the center was a circled location, labeled in spidery ink. Ashcroft Athenaeum, condemned 1892. Emily's heart beat faster. She knew the name. The Ashcroft Athenaeum had once been a private collection of occult texts and arcane manuscripts, shuttered after a mysterious fire. The building was supposedly demolished, its location swallowed by new construction. She stared at the circled area. If she overlaid this map with a modern one, that would place it near Clerkenwell, right where an empty, crumbling structure still stood behind rusted iron fencing. She stepped back, letting the letter drop to the desk. Who had sent this? And why her? Emily wasn't a detective or an adventurer. She was a historian. She cataloged, she cross-referenced, she wrote footnotes. But something about the message, about that symbol in the wax, spoke to a part of her that didn't belong to lecture halls or archival boxes. That night, sleep eluded her. The phrase repeated in her mind like a whisper. Seek what lies beneath the library of shadows. By morning, Emily had packed a satchel with a flashlight, notebook, and gloves. She folded the map into her coat pocket and set out into the city, heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. Whatever waited beneath that forgotten library, she would find it. Or it would find her. The old building loomed like a ghost among the city's modern skeleton. Half swallowed by ivy and forgotten by time, it crouched behind a rusted iron fence near Clerkenwell, wedged between a derelict warehouse and a glass-paneled office that blinked with artificial life. Emily stood before the gate, the sky a dull pewter above her. The Ashcroft Athenaeum, or what was left of it, looked even more forsaken than the map had implied. Stonework crumbled at the edges and soot-blackened windows stared out like blind eyes. She hesitated. Then, wordlessly, she climbed over the fence, boots crunching on the moss-slick path. Her breath fogged the air. The only sound was the quiet hum of the city just beyond the alley, like a memory being held at arm's length. The main doors were sealed tight with iron chains. But the map had marked a side wall, and sure enough, tucked behind a half-toppled marble lion, she found a basement door half-buried beneath tangled weeds and broken glass. She pulled, and the door groaned open. A rush of musty air hit her, earth and mildew and old, forgotten ink. She switched on her flashlight. The narrow stone stairway descended into blackness. Step by careful step, Emily descended. Cobwebs brushed her face. The walls were lined with cracked tile and carved lintels bearing inscriptions in Latin, Greek, and stranger scripts she couldn't name. There were sigils, circles within triangles, keys, eyes. The stairway opened into a vast, vaulted chamber. And there it was, the Library of Shadows. Bookshelves rose like ribs from the ground, spiraling toward a ceiling lost in darkness. Books lay scattered in piles, stacked on altars, sealed behind iron lattices. Lanterns, not electric but gas-fed, flickered to life the moment she stepped inside, casting long shadows that danced with flickering life. In the center of the chamber stood a large stone desk, and behind it someone waited, a figure cloaked in black, face hidden beneath a hood. Still as a statue. Emily froze. "You came," the figure said. The voice was deep, genderless, strangely resonant. "I followed the letter," Emily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "What is this place?" The figure motioned for her to come closer. She obeyed cautiously. "This," they said, gesturing to the cathedral of knowledge around them, "is a repository of what the world chooses to forget. Forbidden histories, redacted truths, knowledge sealed beneath centuries of silence. And you are. I am the keeper. But I am only one. We are many. We are called the Obsidian Circle." Emily's breath caught. The name felt familiar, like something whispered in dreams and half-remembered footnotes. The keeper placed a worn leather volume on the desk. It had no title, only the same circular symbol as the wax seal. Inside, her name was written, in ink, dated today. "We've been waiting for you, Emily Rhodes." She stared at the name. "Why me?" The keeper did not answer directly. Instead, they handed her a card, a thick square of black vellum with embossed silver letters. "You stand on the threshold of silence. Step forward, and you will not return the same." The gaslight dimmed. The chamber grew colder. And as the shadows lengthened, Emily knew one thing for certain. She was no longer part of the world she had known. The chamber narrowed as Emily followed the keeper, torchlight wavering against the stone like breath in a mirror. They passed beneath an archway carved with symbols that shifted slightly when she wasn't looking at them directly. Her footsteps echoed, her heartbeat louder still. Down they went, deeper into the earth, until the air thickened and the walls began to sweat. The keeper stopped before a door, smooth obsidian, seamless, without hinge or handle. "This is the chamber of reflection," the keeper said. "Inside, you will face yourself. No noise, no light beyond what you carry. No guidance." Emily hesitated. "And if I fail?" "There is no failure. Only choice." The keeper stepped back. "If you leave before sunrise, you walk away. No questions asked. But if you remain until first light, the circle accepts you. And you will never unknow what you come to understand." Without waiting, the keeper raised a hand. The door silently melted inward, revealing darkness thick as oil. Emily took a breath, gripped her flashlight tighter, and stepped through. The door sealed behind her. Inside, the chamber was circular, the walls lined entirely with antique mirrors. No two were the same. Some were gold-framed, others cracked or fogged. All reflected versions of herself, distorted, elongated, reversed. The flashlight's beam made her own face multiply 100-fold, eyes glancing back with slight differences. Emily set her satchel down and sat cross-legged in the center. The silence was total. She tried to focus on breathing, on centering herself. But time stretched, warped. The air didn't move. Her own thoughts grew loud, memories she hadn't summoned rising unbidden. Her father's funeral, the university panel that dismissed her theories as overly speculative, the fire. The fire. It flooded back without warning. She was 8 years old again, trapped in her childhood home. Flames had painted the walls in frantic orange, smoke crawling across the ceiling. Her mother's voice, just out of reach, screaming her name. The creak of beams above. The sudden, terrible silence when everything collapsed. Emily gasped. The mirrors shifted. One showed her kneeling in those flames, untouched. Another showed her mother, alive, reaching out from behind the glass. One mirror had no reflection at all, just darkness, a void that pulled at her gaze. "I was supposed to die," she whispered to herself. No response. Just her voice swallowed whole by the room. But something in her shifted, something subtle and tectonic. She realized she had lived her entire life in the shadow of that fire, chasing answers not just for history's sake, but to outrun her own survival. A borrowed life. A question left unanswered. Now, surrounded by silent mirrors, the truth was simple. She wasn't here by accident. The circle hadn't chosen her. She had been returning all along. When the first light of morning leaked through a slit in the ceiling, a mirror cracked across its center, and the obsidian door slowly opened. Emily stepped out. The keeper waited. No words were spoken. None were needed. They handed her a ring, smooth black stone set in silver, engraved with the circle's sigil. She slipped it on. She was now one of them. And somewhere, deep in the library's endless corridors, her real initiation had just begun. Dust spiraled in slow motion as Emily turned the brittle pages of the manuscript. The ink had faded to sepia, the parchment frayed at the corners. She worked in silence under the flickering light of an old brass desk lamp, deep within one of the restricted wings of the Library of Shadows, an annex known as the Black Stacks. The keeper had given her no explanation, only a name, the 13th key, and a date scrawled on a torn scrap of parchment, 1590. It had taken her 3 days to find a trace. And now she held it in her hands, a weathered field journal signed with an ornate mark, F.W. Francis Walsingham, spymaster to Queen Elizabeth I, a man known for riddles, codes, and secrets. The final entry chilled her. The other 12 were decoys. The true key remains hidden beneath the altar, where no crown nor church dares tread. Let its cipher never be spoken aloud, lest the world hear itself undone. She reread the passage, fingers brushing the faint watermark in the margin, a keyhole surrounded by 13 stars. Her historian's mind raced. There had long been whispers of Walsingham hiding something powerful, something too dangerous to trust even to the Queen. Scholars had dismissed it as myth. But the Obsidian Circle didn't chase myths. They preserved truths too dangerous to publish. She looked up from the journal, heart quickening. Beneath the altar. No crown. No church. The phrase triggered a memory. During her early studies, she'd once read about an unblessed altar hidden beneath Westminster Abbey. A relic of a time before the church claimed it. A location quietly sealed off centuries ago. Never restored. Never marked. Emily closed the journal, careful and reverent. The next night, she moved like a shadow through Westminster. She wore gloves and carried only what she needed: a miniature flashlight, a folded replica of the Abbey's floor plan, and the black ring marking her as one of the circle. Access was arranged. Silent locks. Hidden keys. A passage opened beneath a disused cloister, leading downward through layers of forgotten earth. She passed crumbling masonry, shattered Latin tablets, and the remains of a stairwell long erased from official records. The crypt at the bottom was unlit, untouched. At its center stood the altar, a plain stone slab, weathered by time and unseen prayers. Emily approached and knelt. Her fingers searched the underside, finding what she hoped was there, a groove. She pressed the sigil on her ring into it. A click echoed like a gunshot in the dark. The slab shifted with the sound of grinding stone. Beneath it lay a small recess, lined with velvet long turned to dust. In it, a single object. Not a key. A small glass orb, no bigger than a plum. Inside swirled threads of gold light, alive like strands of thought in motion. It pulsed faintly, in rhythm with her heartbeat. She reached for it, and visions exploded in her mind. Maps of code. Hidden doors. Names of people she'd never met, and yet somehow knew. Passwords that could bypass the most secure systems. Locations of black archives beneath the Vatican. Encrypted files in the Pentagon. It was not a key that opened locks. It was a cipher that unlocked everything. Emily staggered back, gasping. She replaced the orb and resealed the altar. Not out of fear, but understanding. Now she knew why the 13th key had to be hidden. Why even the circle feared it. She also knew that someone else was looking for it. Because in those visions, buried beneath lines of code and memory, she had seen another face. Watching her. Waiting. Smiling. The library was silent, but not still. Emily moved through the lower halls of the Obsidian Circle's inner sanctum with quiet urgency, her boots brushing marble older than the British Empire itself. She kept to the shadows, not out of fear, but because the circle taught her well. When the truth is dangerous, even the air listens. She had hidden the 13th key. Not destroyed, not surrendered, just placed where no one could reach it, not even her. Not without a price. The memory of it still flickered at the edge of her mind like lightning behind closed eyes. The cipher was too powerful, too complete. But someone else had seen it, too. Someone inside the circle. She remembered the flash of that smile in the vision. Not malicious, worse. Confident. Familiar. Lucian Drake. He was the circle's oldest active operative. A former MI5 cryptographer who'd once dismantled an entire Russian darknet with nothing but a typewriter and a glass of scotch. He had taken Emily under his wing after her initiation, guiding her through the maze of hidden texts and unspoken rules. She had trusted him. Now that trust cracked. Emily needed proof. She found it in the mirror room. The chamber was sealed, reserved for only the highest-ranking members of the circle. A place where encrypted memory records were kept. Reflections not of the body, but of decisions. Confessions. Oaths. It took her 3 hours, 2 bypass security glyphs, and 1 nerve-steadying breath to unlock Lucian's record. The mirror hummed, then flickered, then showed him, standing in the very same chamber, speaking to someone through a flickering sigil etched in midair, a telepathic conduit. The voice that answered was filtered, distorted, but the words were clear. "You were right. She's found it." "The key?" Lucian asked. "Yes. She doesn't yet understand its scale. Then I'll keep her close. When the time comes, we'll take it from her." Emily's stomach dropped. Lucian hadn't just betrayed her. He had betrayed the circle. And not to some outsider. To the Ivory Sun, a radical splinter group that believed the Obsidian Circle had grown arrogant, gatekeeping truth from the world. Where the circle preserved secrets, the Ivory Sun sought to expose them all. No matter the cost. That night, Emily confronted him, not in anger but in silence. Lucian sat in the circle's study chamber, fingers steepled, a dossier open before him. He didn't look up when she entered. Didn't need to. "I suppose this is where we pretend we didn't know it would come to this," he said, without a trace of remorse. "I trusted you," Emily replied. "I still trust you," he said calmly. "That's the tragedy." She stepped closer. "You've endangered everything." "I've challenged everything," Lucian corrected. "The circle fears change. They'd bury every truth they find. But some truths should burn the world if they must." He looked at her then, eyes hard, resolute. "I don't want to hurt you, Emily. But I will take the key. The world needs it." A long silence stretched between them. Then Emily said quietly, "You'll never find it." He smiled. The same smile she had seen in the vision. Neither will the circle. Later, alone in her quarters, Emily sat by the cold glow of a candle. The ring on her finger pulsed faintly, as if aware. She stared into the flame. The circle was fractured. The key was no longer a secret. And now the only path left was war. The circle convened at midnight. 12 robed figures gathered in the heart of the library's central sanctum, beneath the vaulted ceiling etched with constellations that no longer matched the modern sky. Emily stood among them, hood lowered, face bare. Lucian stood opposite her, unchained, unrepentant, his own hood removed as well. It was rare for a formal tribunal to be called. Rarer still for it to be public. The keeper stood at the center, hands folded. "Lucian Drake," they said, voice echoing through the chamber. "You are accused of treason against the circle. You have conspired with the Ivory Sun, leaked restricted knowledge, and endangered the sanctity of the 13th key." Lucian didn't flinch. "I acted for truth." Emily stepped forward. "You acted for power." He turned to her then, and for a flicker of a moment, the mask fell away. No arrogance, no guile. Just the old mentor she once trusted. You saw what it can do, Emily. The key could change everything. End war. Erase famine. Expose the lies we've built civilization on. And in doing so, she said, destroy every fragile balance holding this world together. He raised his voice. How long will we hide behind the lie that people can't handle the truth? How long will we hoard knowledge like dragons over gold, while the world burns without it? The other members murmured. Some turned their heads. The schism was wider than she'd feared. The keeper raised a hand. Silence. Then, Emily Rhodes. You've recovered the key. Do you believe Lucian should be exiled? Emily hesitated. She had always believed in the Circle's mission. But now, standing at the edge of fracture, she understood Lucian in a way she hadn't before. He wasn't entirely wrong. He was just willing to let the world bleed to prove his point. I believe he should live, she said. But not here. Lucian met her eyes, and for the first time, there was something like regret behind his gaze. Not for what he did, but for leaving her behind. That night, the Circle severed his connection to the archive. No exile was spoken. He simply walked out into the London fog, coat wrapped tight, disappearing down the alley that led to nowhere and everywhere. But Emily knew this was no end. It was a delay. He would regroup. The ivory sun would rise again. And now, worse, the Circle itself was divided. Days later, a secure communique flickered across Emily's black glass tablet. It came through a restricted channel, encrypted with a cipher only the keeper knew. But it wasn't from the keeper. The Circle is compromised. You cannot trust the council. Protect the key at all costs. Burn this message. K. Emily read it twice, then stared at the signature. K. No title. No seal. No traceable origin. The only thing more dangerous than the enemy outside was the betrayal brewing within, and the mask that was about to fall next. Might be her own. London burned without fire. Not in the streets, not yet, but in the code. In the data streams. In the quiet collapse of secrets once buried deep beneath digital vaults and forgotten vaults of stone. It began with a leak, coordinates of unacknowledged military facilities. Then diplomatic wiretaps. Biochemical research locked in private labs. Then redacted footage. Centuries-old files torn from the Obsidian archive and released onto the open net. The ivory sun had struck. Emily stood inside the Circle's war room, surrounded by concentric rings of screens, some modern, others ancient devices powered by strange energies. Each displayed chaos. Live maps of global panic, emergency broadcasts, fragments of encrypted data bleeding into public consciousness. At the center, the keeper stood motionless, hands behind their back. This is not a leak, they said, voice tight. This is a purge. Across from them, 3 council members argued in low, clipped voices. Blame circled like vultures. Emily said nothing. She had seen this coming. Lucian hadn't just escaped, he had ignited something. The ivory sun wasn't a fringe movement anymore. It had grown, organized, evolved. And somehow, they'd accessed the edge of the 13th key. Not the orb itself, she had hidden that too well, but pieces of its cipher. Enough to cause global tremors. Someone inside the Circle was still feeding them. The schism wasn't looming anymore. It had split the Circle in two. That night, Emily met with her closest allies, only 3 she still trusted. One was a linguist trained in dead languages. One, a defector from a now-erased government agency. The third, a blind woman who could read truth like others read books. They met in a sealed chamber known as the spine, a vertical shaft where sound could not carry, where records were never kept. We're being pulled apart, the blind woman said softly. Truth has stopped being a principle. It's become a weapon. Emily nodded. The Circle can't protect it anymore. Not like this. So what now? The defector asked. Do we stop the sun? Or join them? Emily didn't answer right away. She pulled out a fragment of the cipher, just a sliver of it, encoded onto a smooth obsidian tablet, and placed it on the table. No one gets it, she said. Not them. Not us. We destroy it, asked the linguist. No, Emily replied. We bury it, so deep neither side can reach it. And we rewrite the rules. Her allies looked at her, unsure. But she had already made the choice. She would disappear, vanish from the Circle, from the world, and take the key with her. A third path. One no one saw coming. By dawn, she was gone. The war between shadow and light would continue without her. And somewhere far from the chaos, in a forgotten place beneath stone and ash, the 13th key waited, sealed behind a vault coded only to her blood. If either side came looking, they'd have to find her first. Years passed. The war faded from the headlines. The obsidian circle grew silent, fractured, faded, absorbed into the machinery of other institutions, some still secret, some now exposed. The ivory sun, once radiant, flickered and broke apart under the weight of its own ungoverned chaos. When you flood the world with truth, people don't awaken, they drown. The key was never found, but stories endured. They whispered of a cipher that could unlock every vault and sever every lie, of a woman who vanished with it, and of a library deep beneath the bones of London where the shadows still moved. The building above was long forgotten now, an abandoned townhouse in Lambeth, boarded up, its true foundations buried far beneath. Moss crept over its bricks. Rain licked the broken glass. The gate never opened. The path never saw footprints. Until one day, a boy, maybe 19, thin, hungry for meaning, arrived with a strange envelope in hand. No return address. Black wax seal. A symbol. A circle around a single vertical line. The message was short. Seek what lies beneath the library of shadows. The boy climbed the fence. He found the hidden door. Descended the stairs. And the moment his foot touched the stone floor of the vault, the lanterns flared to life, each one igniting with a puff of violet flame. At the far end of the chamber, someone waited behind the central desk. She wore no hood. Her hair was streaked with gray now, but her eyes were the same, steady, firelit, and impossibly clear. Emily Rhodes. No longer just an initiate. Not a scholar, not a runaway. She was the keeper now. She gestured to the young man with a faint smile, curious, warm, and careful. "Tell me," she said, "what did the letter mean to you?" The boy swallowed. I don't know, but I felt like it was for me." Emily nodded. "Then you're ready." And so it began again. Not with fire, not with war, but with a single seeker standing at the edge of a secret. And a woman who understood that the world didn't need to be told everything. It just needed someone strong enough to guard what it couldn't yet bear. The end. Or perhaps the beginning again.